All right. So welcome. I'm so excited for this conversation. This was one of the favorites in the last Plant Strong Sculpt. So I'm being joined today by Denise Beatty. She's the founder of the Fitness Fix. Denise is a wealth of information when it comes to the body, and I have heard you called by so many names now, magician and body angel and all sorts of things. Nick, you probably also have a few words for Denise or a few names for Denise yourself. So Denise
Yeah.
is
Depends if I'm doing my exercises, though. Sometimes I have other names for her.
yes, fair. But Denise is a muscle activation technique therapist and specialist, also a muscle system specialist. And probably you have many other certifications as well. But we have known each other now for quite some time, a few decades, well, a couple decades anyways.
Totally, yeah.
Our days at UFC. And I'm just delighted to have you here. I have had a lot of various injuries in my life, and I've worked with a lot of different therapists. And what I have found is the work that you and Kim do at the Fitness Fix, bar none, I think is some of the most helpful work and therapy I've ever done in my life. So I'm just so thrilled to have you with us today. And I know that my ladies are going to have a lot of questions for you. So thank you for being
No problem at all. My pleasure.
And just for those of you, if this is going to be shared on other channels, I'll introduce myself as well. My name is Rebecca Garland, and I am the founder of Elan Performance. And it's a company that focuses on fitness, nutrition, and coaching. And right now, because of my own age, I'm also getting into the area of perimenopause and hormone support. And so that's what this Plant Strong Sculpt program is all about. So I will stop talking here, and I just would love to hand it over to Denise if you want to give a little introduction, and then we'll move into questions.
Okay, that. And did you want me to also introduce the topic, or is that?
Well,
or just my?
Yeah. Activation is sort of the focus of today is activation. A lot of people, I mean, we hear this word, but we don't necessarily know exactly what it means. So I would love for you to also just introduce us to the topic of activation and how it's different from just flexing and working muscles.
Awesome. I was like, you mean just me or like the top? Okay, I'm good. So the quick background on myself is that I met Rebecca, like she said, in university. I'm an exercise physiologist and a medical exercise specialist. And I had really a passion about injuries because of my own injuries. And when I moved here in that first year, unfortunately, I was hit by the first accident was I was rear-ended and then hit the car in front. And that was significant, but doable. And then a few months later, I was riding my bike to work and I got sideswiped by a delivery truck riding my bike. So then there was, like hip and legs and, smashed up hand and just all these, kind of issues on my left side from the injury. And he just drove off. So, and then some, tourists from, from England actually got me to Foothills Hospital, which was amazing. But so there was that. And I was even like, I couldn't type and I just lost so much function. And to even walk down the street, I had to hold my head to one side because my neck would seize up so badly. Like I couldn't even, and I kept walking, veering to the right. Like I couldn't, get myself even aligned. And then about 6 months after that, I was in one more car accident where I was ready to make a turn and a car kind of dodged another vehicle that cut him off and he hit me head on and my knee went into the dashboard and again, kind of that left side. So this is all within a 1 year period. And I'm in university at the time. And so for quite a few of my lectures, I had to stand through the lectures. I couldn't even sit through it. My sciatic pain on my left hip was so bad that like I had to take a little spiky ball or a tennis ball or something with me just to keep trying to release it to make it through. And I'd also at that point, like my goal was to be a physiotherapist initially. So I'd volunteered like endless hours with physios. And one of the things that this is related to what we're talking about today, I shouldn't use the words got in trouble, but I got a little bit in trouble with the physios every time I questioned things. So it would be one runner at UFC, actually, when I was volunteering, had, he had such an issue on his right IT bands and his right side, and they were doing extensive stretching way back then and everything else. And I kept saying, his like left bum isn't even developed. Like, his right side's very developed, but his left, nope, we got to keep working this right side. So I got very overwhelmed with I just kept questioning things like this just doesn't seem right. And then in myself, I was a dancer and a gymnast, and I was still coaching gymnastics at the time until I was 30. So, and I'm 47 now. So I had stretching was my entire life. I started dancing when I was 3 as a competitive gymnast, like stretching was my life. So then I have this injury. So what do? I'm tight. I stretch it. And did I know stretches? Like I could still do the splits. I had crazy ranges of motion. The stretching did help. It helped temporarily for sure. Like it would release it, but then my hip would seize up again, my back would seize up again, and my neck would seize up. So I kept, there's something missing, but you don't know what it is. So I kept volunteering at physios and I kept kind of exploring. I wanted to find out ways to test muscles because one of the things I found was in one of my courses, actually university, Dr. Kinnear was his name. He had said, we know that if you stretch too deeply, you're going to lose power and function before activity. So don't stretch before activity. Like we know this is research. We know the muscles cannot respond. So if you're holding a passive stretch or you're reaming on a joint and you want it to be responsive, it's not. It's like so then that was really powerful for me because after that, I never stretched before things, but I still did lots of stretching after. And I started teaching classes where I had a strength class on Saturday morning and we never stretched before, like we'd warm up. Then and then we had a run right after. And the running program, I made sure they didn't do any stretches at the end of class and we'd go for a run after. Well, those runs were my best. I felt so phenomenal. Like everything was connected, but I had this great warm up, but zero stretching. And then I didn't even stretch after because I had clients right away. And I felt amazing the whole day. I never tightened up. And I was like, there's something to this. Like, I think I've balanced my muscles, then run and challenge them. And then I'm working all day, 6 or 7 hours after that with clients. And I felt phenomenal. And I'm like, how does that make sense? Because I usually stretch after my runs. And then I feel like I need to keep stretching all day. So then the beauty of all of this is that as I was dealing with my own injuries, I started noticing that if I did exercises for my hips and I balanced them, I didn't feel like I needed to stretch. I just wasn't tightening anymore. So then with all the research that has come about, especially the last 20 years, that's so neurologically based, we know that we have these little Golgi tendons and muscle spindles that sense our joint's position. And if those receptors have been damaged, like you've had an old injury, you've sprained an ankle, they can't sense where the joint is. So the muscles tend to be a little bit more responsive. So they'll actually tighten and pull the joints together. So when we think about why are we stretching, we're stretching often because something's tight. So, and why are we tight? We are tight most often because a joint or an area is a little bit unstable and a muscle has tightened to try to protect that joint, whether it's your back, your hips, your hip flexors, your neck. Something is tightening to protect that joint that can't really feel where it is. It's not really responsive and it might have been injured in the past. So your muscles are like, too bad for you. I'm not letting you move there again. You hurt me last time. I'm going to tighten. Then we stretch it or ream on it and we make that muscle let go. So now we're opening up the joint, but the joint doesn't have any signal. So it's like, well, I still don't feel anything. I'm loose. So I feel better for a second, but you know what? Oh, she's starting to move again. She's starting to challenge during the day. She's holding her head up. I'm going to tighten to protect that again, because guess what? I still don't know where I am in space. And there hasn't been a signal or a great contraction to help me feel more stable. So the two things that I'm covering are basically, why do we tighten and need to stretch? That's one. It's those past injuries and that lack of reception. The other thing is sometimes an opposite joint is weaker, an opposite side of the same joint or the opposite side period. So it might be that your inner thigh on your leg is weak. The outer thigh might tighten to try to stabilize your leg so you don't have a signal from the inner thigh. Sometimes it's the whole opposite side of the body. The right side of your back will tighten and hold on to that whole spine if we're not getting a good signal on that left side. So if we are very responsive on the right side, that muscle will learn how to contract and relax. So we still want to have nice contractions there, but we sure got to get that left side working. We've got to get the other side having a powerful signal so that the side that's protective can learn how to keep responding and not just seize up to try to protect you.
And what I want to be really clear with is going to the gym is not the same. So going to the gym and doing rows or lat pull downs or whatever are great strengthening exercises, but they are not what Denise is talking about here, right? So in order to strengthen the muscle, we need to activate the muscle and bring it online before we move into the strengthening. Yes.
Exactly. And you nailed it, Rebecca, because then we develop these compensations. So the compensations are how we move. So if we didn't compensate, a lot of us wouldn't even be able to move properly at all. So what happens is it might be that and this is, an easy way because this is so applicable to most of us and it's critical if you want to run or do a squat or lunge properly. If your spine's not stable, so if you don't have muscles along your back stabilizing it properly, then your powerful hip flexor, deep muscle from T12 to L4, your psoas, that's trying to stabilize your spine and lift up your leg, if it can't grab onto something stable, it is going to seize up. It'll even rotate your pelvis forward. So now we don't have a stable spine. We don't have a hip flexor lifting up our leg. How are we going to pick up that leg? Usually other hip flexors that can work, but it's usually like IT bands outside of our legs, sometimes groin muscles. We will find a way to get that leg up, but it's not going to be optimal and things are going to tighten. So now we have compensations. So just doing a squat isn't going to fix you. We have to make sure that we have little micro movements and isometric holds to help the brain signal the muscle. Then it becomes more responsive. So when we actually move, it does what it's supposed to. So, to summarize, it's basically we're tight because we're either protective or we have a lost signal there. We're usually unstable on another side. So we have to give it more reception, but we have to also give it more stability.
Yeah.
So those are our big keys. And we had to give that feedback is usually that really isolated isometric contraction, like contracting and holding a bicep, or, something that gives us that signal from the brain to the muscle where the brain goes, oh, hey, I know how to contract that. It can contribute to my movement now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the smaller muscles or the other muscles that are online will take over. The body's so smart, it will perform the movement somehow, but the muscles you think that maybe that you're trying to work, they can still stay pretty offline. So the work that you do at the Fitness Fix is so great. And I've not seen really any other therapists. And I feel so bad saying this as the wife of somebody who's a partner at a clinic. I've just not seen this really anywhere else. And I was introduced to MAT, like muscle activation technique, again, decades ago at an IDEA conference. And then I was doing the one of those half-day workshops before the Ideas Conference or whatever with Greg Roscoff, who's the creator of MAT. Denise has taken the whole certification and then more certifications on top of that. But it was 2003, actually maybe 2002 when I was introduced to that work. Because in 2003, I was also in a car accident and I was going to my physio, and she was amazing and she's very well known and she's great. But she was just stretching me all the time. I was being stretched in my hip flexors and all the tight areas, trying to get my range of motion back. And it, again, like you said, it felt good for a short period of time, but then my body, everything just always kept contracting again. And I wasn't getting a lot of improvement. So this was really eye-opening at the time. I think it was pretty cutting edge at the time. And it's anyway, amazing work. So Denise, can we maybe just pause and hear questions if anyone has anything that they're working on right now, and we can kind of take it from there in terms of what you would, I don't know, I'll just let you take it from there after with some questions here. Karen, Amy Leah is saying my inner kinesiologist is loving this. Yes, awesome. Karen is saying that MAT, muscle activation technique, has been amazing for me. So Karen is seeing Kim. So if anyone's working with anything that you have any questions about, we'll open the space.
I don't know if I have any specific questions, but well, no, that's not true. I do. I just want to know how to do it.
Yeah,
like what exactly works. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we will for sure do that.
Okay.
But I want to just make sure that we have time in case anyone's working with anything specific, but otherwise Denise will kind of give us a few exercises for common injuries that she sees for women over the age of 35 or 40. So if nobody has anything that they're working with or any specific questions, like Denise's wait list is so long. Use this time. Otherwise you won't get to see her till like May or June, or no, you won't get to see her for at least 3 months. I don't think so. Okay. No questions are coming in. All right.
Well, and that's, and if you think of something as we're going, you guys definitely chime in, and I'll try. Oh, bursitis. So, in hip or what area?
Yes, in her hip. And she's working with Kim on it, but.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks, Karen. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so actually one of the drills really addresses that as well. And there is another little piece to it that I will touch on, not to be overwhelming, but just so that you guys are aware. If you try, Nick, I know all Nick's issues, so I could like, Nicola's like, but if you, and Nicola will understand what I'm saying about this, if you try some of these things and they help, it's going to be powerful for you and the SI joint. Okay, perfect. Because that's one of the drills I'm thinking that might help Karen as well. we want to be a little sneaky and try to get the nerves and the motor. The little piece that we just don't touch on is the neurological. So if there has been, a whiplash, if your jaw is off a little bit, your inner ear is off, like if you tend to keep shifting one way, then I can help fix you from here down. But if we don't address how you take in your environment and line that up, we're still going to have that shift. So that's just in the back of your mind is going to be that other little piece. So I will give you one piece to kind of help with that. What we want to do, and it's a more advanced neurological course I'm taking right now, is just sensory before motor. And so what that means is if you have an area that doesn't work as well, say it's your left bum or you're kind of like my left bicep can't contract, it is okay literally to just tap it or rub it a little bit, or just press on it just to give it a little extra sensory. So just kind of remembering that. And the area that's tight or sore tends to, again, be that one that's overworked. So it's not the one that needs the most work. The other part of sensory.
Hold on. Can you say that again slowly? I want everybody to take this in.
Yes. So the area that's really tight and sore is most often not the area that needs the most work. It's usually fried. It's done. It is so tired of holding you together or keeping you in a line or balancing your pelvis. It's done. That side, a little bit of work might help keep it stable, but it's usually what around that is not working. Let's work everything else to take pressure off that injury. So keep thinking that. And the other piece to this that will fit with everything I'm doing next is knowing that your injury, I want you to assume that it's actually a strong area for you. If you have a sore area, if it's like the right side of your back, the right hip, assume your body is very good at loading it, because it tends to be sore and overworked because we feel it a lot and we trust it and we just keep pounding it. There's very few cases that it's actually that side that's sore that is actually the big weakness. It's very rare. I've trained literally hundreds of hip replacement surgeries. I am not kidding you. I've only seen one in 27 years that was the opposite, or the same side that was weak. And that was a lady that was hit on the driver's side in a car accident. So her left side of her pelvis was shattered and it was the left side weakness. That's the only case in 27 years.
Wow.
And so really 24 years, because I was on my own then, but I was volunteering then. And I just kept noticing like the sore hip person had developed glutes on that side and none on the other side, or there was a difference. Yeah. Bigger quads on that side. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And what this will mean
if I can interrupt for a quick sec too, is like, so it can look like strengthening or activating and strengthening the other side of the body, or even a lot of times you look up and down. So if the problem is the knee, you look to the hip and the ankle often, right? So above the joint and below the joint. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's that joint is quite often not your weakness. It's everything around it that we can get to help is going to help. So it might seem unrelated, but it's related. And then what do you do with that information? Well, what I would say is that area that's sore, I'd probably do the contractions of whatever exercise you're doing, whether it's something that I give you or a lunge or whatever exercise. Do a couple of reps on that side first, on your bad side, because that's usually what your body senses the most. But then focus on the other side. Okay. So then you'd always finish away from the injury. So if you're a bit sore on the right knee, you always finish on the left leg. I know it sounds weird to work that side first, but a lot of times it is quite sensory. It really feels where you are. So it usually has a better pattern. And of course, without me seeing you, I can't say 100%, but it's like high 90s. It's insane. So I've seen enough over the years that I'm like, if I just kind of follow these rules, that remembering I'm not going to pound that area that too much. I'm going to give it a little break and work everything else around it to help it out structurally. And you always finish on something opposite the injury, like whether it's, like I mentioned, if it's right hip that's sore, finish on that left hip so that your body has the last signal on that left side so it doesn't keep overloading the right.
Interesting. I haven't heard that. I love that. Interesting. So just before we move into the SI stuff, Karen, I don't want to say full names because this is going to be shared publicly, but KB, so not KM, is talking about groin issues. At the beginning of the program, was doing a lot of walking, how to stop due to groin pain. Now she rides her bike. Groin is still sore, but better. So whatever you provide for SI may be helpful for that, but we'll see where you might want to take that too.
Okay, I love it. So what I'm going to do is the most critical part is any exercise that I give you, if your spine is not stable, then I'm not going to really get results with you guys. So that's going to be number one. So I'm going to show you something that you could do as a warm up before. I do this before, like before I ran this morning in my classes I taught today. Like I warm up the spine fast. So we're going to get that right away. If you have the spine really stable, then you're less likely to have one part of your pelvis that's the SI stuff too. So that sometimes you have one side of the back that isn't working as well. So one side, it tightens more and it will actually rotate the pelvis forward. And that can be some of the groin pain as well. And sometimes if the pelvis is rotated forward completely, we get a bit more groin tightness. So I'm going to stabilize the spine first, and then we're going to get the hip flexor working. So if we get that, then we can build on everything else. And you might even notice that it opens up the hips quite beautifully and it serves as a great warm up. So it's pretty basic. All you need is a wall that you can put your bum on. And so I'll show you that. And then if you have questions as I'm doing it, let me know. But if we do this, there's just a couple little drills, and this is really a key one. So you have your hips up against a wall. I'll just put my jacket off too. And what we're going to try to do is get a really great contraction with the deep back muscles. You're going to bend into your legs a bit and then really contract both sides of your back to try to slide your tailbone up the wall.
Okay, and we can all do this. If you have access, feel free to back away from the camera. Find a wall, or I've got a chair behind me that I'm going to.
Because I want you to feel it at the same time to see if you can get that really deep contraction. Now what we're going to do is keep the back arched, start contracting the right side of your back to slide the right hip up towards your ribs as much as you can. So you might even feel it right down to the SI joint. If you can feel some of these deep stabilizers up and down the back, and just hold there. And give it a few seconds where you're like, oh, I feel some little bites or some pinches. This is phenomenal before or after gardening as well. Anything where you're in forward flexion and rotation. So you're arching, hike that right hip up. Now we're going to add a rotation to it. You're going to turn to the right and pull your elbow into the wall. Take a few deep breaths there, and you're still trying to contract that right side of the back, opening the whole left side of your body. In the front, you'll feel the left abs kind of open, the left ribs open, and then back to the center. So it's just 3 parts. It's arch, hike, and rotate. So now we're going to arch, hike that left hip up. You feel those deep muscles kicking in on that left side. Turn to the left and pull that left elbow back into the wall. Take a few breaths as you're still hiking that hip up. You'll feel the right abs open a bit. And then back to the center. Pull the shoulder blades back and pull your elbows into the wall. Now this is a little trick and tip for breathing without your neck. Take a deep breath in. Feel the ribs open and exhale fully, pulling your elbows into the wall. And one more. And then come on up. So you should feel a lot of muscles really waking up in your back. That's a good opportunity to really balance both sides of the spine. Then when we finished in the middle, we signaled our diaphragm so that when you're exercising, you're less likely to tighten up your neck and shoulders. So we got everything covered in that one exercise.
Denise, when you're pressing back against the wall, like, are you also trying to pull those shoulder blades down, or?
I'm not down. So shoulder blades down is a tricky beast, because if we pull the shoulder blades down, we add tension to our necks. Slide the shoulder blades back, that's a good question, and then actually slide them up a little bit and pull back. You might notice if the shoulders, if you just shrug them up, it's one thing, but if you float them up and back a little, and then you go to do any arm movement, you'll get a lot more recruitment under mid and lower traps. But a lot of times we're taught and told to push the shoulders down and back, which is okay, but we actually lose some of the space in our shoulders, and we don't strengthen the deep ligaments as much. So even in a press, for example, you can float up and back a bit, and you'll notice like, wow, I feel all these guys working. Instead, it's this little float up and back, and you'll be like, oh, wow, I feel my mid and lower traps right from these guys right from the beginning. So if you have the shoulders up and back and pulling the elbows in, it actually takes pressure off the neck because we're not loading it, and we can get more diaphragm action.
Yeah.
So how close are you to the wall?
My bum was pushing into the wall.
Okay.
Yes, my
So
bum
your
was.
heels are against the wall?
Nope, my heels were in front. So I just had my bum into the wall. I'll pretend it's like my little chair here.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That
Nope.
helped.
About a foot or so.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever feels comfortable for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's an amazing, so that's SI joint right there with that hip hike. And you can build on that, but that already is going to help the SI. Part 2 for the SI joint is hip flexor contraction. So we're going to do this one laying on the ground that I think you guys might have seen. Some of you might have seen last time, but it's
Sorry,
because,
Denise, one sec. So there's a question, hiking up one hip and then turn to the opposite direction. I think it's the
oh,
same.
sorry, Nick, same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do hike the left and turn to the left because we're trying to really contract. And that's an excellent question, because a lot of times when we're doing things, when we hurt our backs or imbalance our SIs, is we bend forward and we rotate a bit. So it's like I'm bending forward and rotating away from this right side. And this is the opposite. You're going to hike and turn towards the right side and contract. So if a disc or there's instability in that back, by hiking and turning to that same side, the muscles actually massage it in and really get all those ligaments. So you're hiking.
Yeah, you're right. People, like, I do it all the time when my back's sore and very tight. I remember I used to do like an over and then I'd come
Like that.
forward and I'd round. Oh, it feels so good. But you're
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think you're right. We do often the opposite. I would never have thought to go there and contract and work it.
Yeah. And it's usually the QLs tighten, like the part you're mentioning, Rebecca, is like when you go to stretch, our QLs are tightening,
Yeah.
the big chunky muscle, because the deep stabilizers are unstable.
Yes.
And they run up and down and they're tightening to try to stabilize you and kind of grab into the spine, but they rotate the pelvis forward. So now your pelvis doesn't look like this, it looks like that. Now we have SI issues, this SI joint, and we have piriformis issues, and we have more loading on the bursitis. Now we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you can see why I have to start at the center, right? Like I have to start at the spine with you guys.
You
because
pretty much described a big part of my injury from the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
perfectly. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you can totally relate, right? Like it's, if I don't stabilize your spine and I'm trying to fix your hips and SI joint, it's not going to hold.
Absolutely.
So I'm
Elbows pressing into the wall on the twist. That's a question.
yes.
Elbows pressing into
Yes. So you're arched, hike, and I turn and I just pull my elbow back into the ball to get this whole right side. And it kind of feels stable because you have all that feedback for the wall. So you could do it freestanding, but I chose the wall deliberately because the more feedback we have from surface area, the more sensory it is. Like, so the body can feel where it is and it won't panic as much. Like it won't kind of go, oh, I'm way over here, I don't like this. It's like, I feel secure. I can breathe through this. Yeah. So is everybody okay on that one so far? So that's a good start. Okay, awesome. And I'm going to show you the hip flexor one. And this is again, SI joint and back and hip related. So a lot of times in the bursitis, and Karen, forgive me for this because I might be assuming too much. So if I am, I'm so sorry. But a lot of times with bursitis, what I've seen and witnessed is because we have all these bursitis in our hip, but really like this bursitis under this TFL, is that kind of the area? Like, is it on the side that your bursitis? Is it? Yeah. Okay. So when we have that, our IT bands and our sartorius that cross here, they attach down here and they actually like to flex our hip, like to pick up our leg for us. And they also like to bend the knee. So when I get these bursitis kind of things that I find, it's a lot of times that, yeah, we actually don't have this deep hip flexor, this deep psoas picking up the leg. And sometimes it's because it can't grab onto the spine properly. So I really target the back right away and that deep hip flexor, because now as soon as you signal this hip flexor, now we've got our hamstrings back too. So now we've got this beautiful revolution for cycling. And the one of the questions about the cycling too, for the cycling, that hamstring hip connection is amazing. And this TFL and IT band just doesn't keep shearing across that bursa sac like a rope on a stone. So if I basically go spine, then hip flexor. So I hope that makes sense for our hip stuff, for picking up our legs, and for our, SI. So I'm going to show you this drill. This is one of my absolute favorites. And I do some form of this in every class I teach. And I'll demo it once first, just so everybody gets a really good picture. And then everybody can join on the ground and maybe listen through. But what you want to have is a very neutral spine. So you don't tuck the bum under. I do have that neutral, like that little natural curve. And if you're not sure how to get it, you can try tucking your bum under and then arch and then just kind of find the middle. If your spine is moving, your head will slide on the floor. In any core work or anything else, if your head slides, you're not stable. You're not whole. So watch that head. You'll feel your hair kind of move. My left leg is pulling down and I'm bringing my right knee towards my chest. Now watch the cheat. A lot of people go to bring their knee up and then see how I tucked right under and my head moved. So that's the cheat. That's not what I'm looking for. Keep the spine neutral, and I'm actually pulling my thigh bone inside my hip joint. Pull up tight, and the bottom leg's down. Now I'm going to hold here and try and hold it on my own. And then there's only one other part. I bring it in one more time, and then I'm pushing away. So when I push away, I wake up the deep fibers under here, under my bum. And then I hold one more time and I lower down. So it's basically a hold up, a push out, and then I hold up and I lower down. So if you feel ready, you can join in with me. And this can balance a rotated pelvis, wake up the hip flexors as well. So
Denise, before we carry on with that, I just have a question I don't want to forget to ask. How many repetitions? So like the hip hike, the rotation, like how long do you hold? How many times would you do that?
So typically around that 5 seconds or 2 breaths, like if you can take 2 breaths through something, you can hold, like 5 seconds is great. And really, if you feel everything contract, you only need 1 rep. If you feel one side contract but the other side didn't, then I would do a 2nd rep. So it's just until you feel the contraction.
Go until you can feel it. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's usually like with all my sessions, it's usually like 1 to 3 reps. Like you don't need.
Okay. So that's different than the mat, which was like 6 seconds.
Yeah, and I found I'm getting such great results. It's like Kelly Starrett's a world-renowned physio as well, and he really talks about breathing. So part of it is owning that position. And I found you don't have to beat something too much. Like if you get it signaled and then you go to exercise after, because I'm a very active recovery person. I don't like people taking a break. I want to retrain them while they're healing, because I don't want to have them rest and then try to run again and then all the same movement patterns are there. So I really focus on signal the muscle and then do your movement, just not too much. Signal the movement, do the movement, do your exercise. So if you signal those muscles, you shouldn't actually need a lot of reps, because that muscle is going to be working now when whatever you go to do, and you're running stairs on Thursday morning, or you're going to be, those guys are prime. Now you're working them. You don't need to do 1,000 isometrics or.
Yeah. Great. Okay. And then in terms of intensity, so how hard, for instance, are you pushing into the wall? Are you giving it your all, or is it like 50-60%? What's the intensity you recommend?
So if you're trying to get a contraction, you always want to be a little bit gentle, because if you push really hard, you're going to just kick in every other muscle in the kitchen sink. Like you're just going to tighten everything.
Yeah.
So I want you to think, that's a great question. So you want to think of contracting a muscle to help you move into position, so that you just kind of sit with it and just let a muscle, like kind of let an area contract. So up against the wall, for example, I was talking about just the deep muscles along your back. You're just trying to get little muscles along your back to contract and grab.
And if you go too hard, the bigger muscles, the other muscles will come online.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Okay, super. So shall we all try this? You'll walk us through. If we won't be able to see you, all of us. So we'll lie down and you'll walk us through. We'll
do one on each leg. So if you know that one hip is a little bit more sore overall, let's try that side first.
Okay.
So you're laying down on the ground and you have your back in neutral, so you can move your hips around a little bit and kind of find that neutral pelvis. Now start with the leg that maybe doesn't have any pain, pulling down into the ground. And you might even feel your hamstrings a little bit. Now you're going to bring that opposite knee up towards your chest. Keep the pelvis in place. Don't let it move. Don't let your head move, just to where you can get to. Now use your hands to help you pull up a little bit more to get that leg right in the hip socket. Keep pulling the other leg down. Now hold with a little contraction in the inside of the hip bone. See if you can hold that knee there. Sometimes you'll even cramp a bit. Now hang on to the leg again. You might be able to move it a little bit further. Just see where you can go. Squeeze the bum muscles of that leg. So you're going to feel the lower deep bum muscles. Gently squeeze. They help balance your whole SI as you push into your knee, with your knee into your hands. Now bring the knee up one more time and hold. And you're going to hold your pelvis in place as you lower. Don't let anything move. Bottom leg's pushing down and lower. Now push that leg down. Start bringing the other knee up and let it move in the hip socket as far as it'll go. Bring your knee up towards your chest and feel a deep contraction on the inside of the hip, and see if you can, like you'll feel it kind of on the top of the hip and maybe a little bit on the inside if you can. Bring the knee a bit closer to your chest and squeeze the deep bum muscles to try and push that knee into your hands. They're going to just kind of kick in. They can even move that tailbone around a little bit if you have an imbalance there. Gently bring the knee up and control as you're lowering. So you feel those abs, control as you lower. And if you move your legs around, if it made a difference to you, you might even feel a little bit more relaxed right now, like those hips might come down because they've been signaled. How's everybody doing so far?
good. I noticed afterwards I was able to bring my knee in quite a bit further.
It responds fast because we're giving it signals. You know, like just improved your range of motion without hurting anything.
Yeah. Anybody else? What did it feel like for you guys? What did you notice, if anything?
So you're pressing your straight leg into the floor the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can kind of picture how there's the opposing force, you know, like with one pushing down and one pulling up. So that's why it's so nice to balance that pelvis with those opposing movements.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then even when you push the leg away, I'm still pushing the bottom one down.
Cool.
So for me, it was kind of less tightness in this right hip because I did do like a strength workout today, a full body. So, you know, the hip was feeling kind of tight and I hadn't stretched it or anything, but that made it feel less tight.
Oh, fantastic. So you can see that
Mhm.
difference between that and stretching, right?
Correct. Yeah. I don't really stretch. I never have.
No, perfect. But yeah, it's neat when you know something's more stable, it'll let go. It's like, hey, I can contract and release properly. You know, something else is contracting, so this can release. You know, you get that beautiful signal through the body, and it's great.
Yeah. I remember taking Greg's course, as I mentioned, way back to 2002, maybe even earlier, actually, now that I think about it more. But one of the things that was so like fascinating to me, so intriguing, and Denise, I don't know if this is kind of what got you a little bit as well, but you know, those the hamstring stretch, you know, those tests that we always used to do was your hamstring length, and you lie on your back and you lift your leg, see how high you can get it. So most people have very short, tight hamstrings. And it was fascinating after just a few activations, not doing any stretching, how within a few minutes you could increase range of motion by a few inches without a single stretch, like
Exactly.
for a minute. It was fascinating.
That's the example they used at the IDEA conference for me too. Like it was, you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's so opposite of almost everything else we've been taught, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you think of each joint that way, if you're kind of like, okay, after I've heard from Denise, what do I do? Like if I'm thinking about, like, I'll give you a couple of other examples that are the most powerful ones that I think will help you the most. But if you think of, okay, what do I do with this now? Like, what do I do instead of a stretch, or how do I manage this? I want you to think of in every joint that you're working, if you open a joint, you have two contractions around that joint. One is a push and one is a pull. Okay, so then if you think of a doorway stretch, a lot of times people go into a doorway to stretch their arms out and they feel a big chest stretch. So if you think of the push and the pull, it's like, okay, if I'm going into what would be a doorway stretch, what can I do? How can I apply what Denise was talking about? Okay, push and a pull. So I'm going to pull my shoulder blades back. Holy cow, I contracted my muscles between my shoulder blades. There's that reciprocal inhibition, back to kinesiology. Contract one side, the other side is signal to let go. Contract your shoulder blades, the chest lets go. Now look at my great range. Now I'm going to push into the wall in this range to make it strong there. Pull, push, 5 seconds of each. Now it's not a doorway stretch. It's a doorway stretch on steroids. It's like, now you've just increased your range of motion and made it strong on both sides of the joints.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, buddy. So again, I'm hoping that, and I can show you that one on the wall if you'd like as well. But I thought instead of, look, you could do one arm, same thing. The other thing that's quite powerful is an exercise kind of instead of a stretch. And it's a chest fly that I found for people with like to lift up your shoulders with neck tension, shoulder issues, anything else. It's one drill that's kind of like that, but it's a little bit harder. So I'm going to show you that one. And all you'd need is a chair or a ball. I'll use the chair just in case you don't have a ball handy. And it's one of the ones I get the most feedback from people that work in an office as well. And just the changes in their neck and posture. Because if the chest is weak, it gets tighter. And then we've now got this posture, and people keep doing chest stretches, or they keep thinking they have to work their back. And a lot of times it's a weakness. So we really want to strengthen and lift. You can see the difference in my neck as soon as my, chest and my abs lift me up. So it's a lot more from those muscles. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so that sounds amazing.
Are we, just to make sure, are we kind of completed with the hip stuff? So I just want to make sure that we also address the
yeah, so I was going to do this one and then one other hip drill.
Okay.
This one's pretty quick, and then the hip drill is pretty quick too.
Super. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, and this one's just because it'll make a difference on the hip drill. Okay. So that you have the chair, you're going to be on your knees. and you have your forearm and elbow on a chair. And what you do is you kind of float that shoulder up and back like I was talking about, and I'm turning away from the arm to get as low as I can. And I actually contract my shoulder blades. So that's the pull. Now I push into the bench or the chair, and then I come right back up and turn towards it. Now I'm pulling back, I'm sliding my shoulder blade back, getting deep. I pull back, and then I push when I'm in this huge range, getting lots of strength here, and then coming up. So let's try a couple on each side if you guys have a spot. And if you want to use the wall, you can as well. This is just harder than the wall. And if you have your elbow pushing forward just a smidge, you'll get under that shoulder blade. So let's hold those abs in, kind of push your elbow forward a bit, feel it under the shoulder blade. Now I'm contracting, I'm pulling back my shoulder blade as I turn away from that arm, get really deep. Now push into the chair and coming back up. And then turning away from that arm, sliding the shoulder blade back, feel all the muscles between the shoulder blade, open the chest. Push into the chair for 5 seconds. And then keep pushing into the chair as you come all the way up. Beautiful, let's try that other side. So your elbows pushing forward just a little bit, hold those abs in. Shoulder just kind of floats up and back to open space in that joint to really work those tendons and ligaments. Turn away from the arm and slide the shoulder blade back, get nice and deep. Push into the chair and turn all the way towards it. Good, 2 more here. Slide the shoulder blade back, get as deep as you can. Push into the chair and come back up. And let's get 1 more, and we'll hold at the bottom, slide the shoulder blades back, get low, push into the chair for 5 seconds in that most open range that you have, and bring it all the way back up and turn towards the arm. How are you guys doing so far on that one?
Good. So where was the elbow slightly below shoulder, or were you above?
It was just about here.
Yeah, okay, that's where I was.
Yeah, and I just kind of float my shoulder up and back and pushed my elbow into it, and I could really activate like kind of mid and lower traps again in the mid and bottom of the shoulder blade.
Okay.
You guys doing okay so far?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I am always pushing into the chair. Yeah, that same idea, right? So you're really getting strength the whole way. Yeah, it's cool. So then you're strength in that whole range of motion. Whereas if you're like doing flies, you don't have that massive resistance in every little direction of that force, like that whole angle. So this one, you actually have awesome force that whole angle. So on every, like around the whole cycle. So we don't have any weight equipment. Well, many of us have access to that give us those force angles all the way through. So it's kind of like that constant pressure stabilizes that whole joint in the entire range.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Because when you were saying pull the shoulder back, I was also kind of lifting, trying to get activation in the back, but no.
Keep pushing.
Keep pushing. So I'm pushing the whole time.
You're pushing, but you will feel the shoulder blades sliding back, but you are pushing the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
And you ready for the 1 more hip one?
Yes. Any questions about that first? Any other questions? No? Okay.
Now this one, keep in mind.
I do, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be like a regular size chair, because I've got these chairs kind of sit at a bar. So it can't be too high, right?
Well, that's a great question. So, and I think you have a ball at home too, right, Karen?
Yep.
Yeah, because I use the ball for it mostly, like, and just roll the ball out and bring it underneath you.
Oh.
Okay.
So the ball is perfect for that. So you can
And
see.
it would be, well, there's different size balls too.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they all work. Like I'll show you the higher chair. I've used a kitchen counter. Like it's totally fine. Whichever, you just kind of roll out and pull up. And then even like with the chair, this height, you just hinge your hips back. So you can have this here and just get into it and hinge into it and turn down.
Okay, so just do it almost like in a squat position type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great, thank you.
Oh, no, that's a great question. And now this hip drill, the little heads up with this one is that you might be a little restricted on one side, and I want you to only go to where you feel really good with this. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm gonna just show you my favorite one. I'll do one demo and then we'll try each together. So you're just gonna be on your hands and knees. You have one leg out, and this bottom leg is actually gonna turn in a little bit. So my knee is outwards and my foot just kind of turned in. And this is very similar to the hip flexor one we did earlier. my tailbone's up, and I'm just going to push my left hip out to the side of it. So this is like when people do pigeon stretches, they're always asking me, well, what do I do instead of a pigeon? How do I do this without destabilizing? Well, I have.
This is answering Karen's question from a week or two ago. So this
Oh, perfect. So I made this up, and you're going to love it. So you have but it's amazing. It's based on some of the other studying that I was doing with the deep joint stabilizers in the hips. So you push out to the side. Now, when you come down, part one is I'm pulling my knee towards my chest, but I gotta keep my back really flat. Don't let the bum tuck under. And then part two, I'm just gonna kind of hold my knee up towards me for a sec. Now, part two, I'm pushing into the ground before I move. So as I push into the ground, I feel all these deep hip muscles and even my core work. It's my left bum and my right abs. Brace the abs and slide back up. So you literally just do 2 reps. You pop that hip out to the side, slide down and up, then switch sides. So let's give it a try. So if you have
I can predict that this is just going to kill my hip.
well, let's
I
see.
think-
Yeah,
But let's try it. Let's try it.
because
Okay.
earlier, we're going to go onto your not sore hip first. Let's go on your not sore hip first
Yeah. Okay.
and turn that leg in. Pop the tailbone up and just push your hip out to the side a little bit.
And sorry, 1 second. Let's start again. I'm going to mute Karen so we can see you. Okay.
Yeah, I'll start talking again. Okay. You're on your hands and knees, and we're going to straighten out the back leg. Turn this leg in a little bit and push that. If you're on your left hip, push it out to the left just until you feel that little stretch in the hip. Now go slowly, holding your abs, slide back wherever you feel okay. It could be here, could be deeper, wherever you feel okay. Pull the knee towards your chest for 2 seconds, and then push your knee into the ground for 2, bracing your abs, and brace everything as you come up, holding that spine equal in that even position. We'll try one more, hip out to the side, pulling the knee towards your chest. Push your knee into the ground, brace your abs, and come back up. And we could hold longer, but you just get the idea. So now we're going to try that other side. I'm on my other knee and I straighten out this leg behind, pop that tailbone up, spin the leg inwards, and push the hip out to the side. So you feel that right hip really working, or that hip that you're on. Start sliding back, just wherever you feel okay. Feel like you're trying to pull your knee towards your chest. Stop wherever you feel unstable, or go as far as you feel you can. Hold up for 2 seconds. Push your leg into the ground, squeezing your deep bum muscles. Brace your abs and come up. And we'll do one more. Arching it, push the hip to the side. And then we're going to pull back. Push into the ground and come up. And then come on up.
Great. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah.
Not that
That's
we
just,
don't want to hear how
that
it's going
just
for you.
is, that's
was that?
extremely painful right in the hip, doing that one on that side.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
So then what you actually do in that case, because I've seen that a lot as well, I know it sounds crazy, but in this case, you actually just do the other side. Just once,
Right.
in a while. Like do the left a little bit, but don't try the right then.
Well, the right one's the sore one. So I
Right.
did the left one first and that felt okay.
Yeah.
But there's no way I could not do it on the other side.
No, so then if you can't do it on the right side, it's too fried, like it can't even hold you. So what that means is leave it alone. Just do the left once in a while to keep signaling that left side, because that'll really get all the left stabilizers to help hold that SI over. So that's the key. Like once it comes down and feels more stable, it might be something that you visit, but it's first, when something's that tired, you just gotta you don't keep pounding it, you don't keep working it. You give it that break.
Well, yeah, if I've learned anything from Kim, it's that, if it hurts, don't do it.
Exactly. And if it hurts, that's a pretty good sign that the muscle can't hold you there. Like it's either unstable or exhausted. And I've seen that, with swimmers. I get all these swimmers from physios and their rotator cuff is fried and they've given them 5,000 rotator cuff exercises. Their rotator cuff is not weak. It is so fried. I literally do not let them do another rotator cuff exercise. I get everything else strong. I'm like, don't even touch it, leave it, let it heal. So that's what you want to do with that hip. There's you do the a more gentle stabilizing one as a quick picture, just in case anybody had trouble with that. But what Karen would do, she needs more stability without actually loading the hip. So the one I'd give Karen would be just squeezing the glutes gently to open into the ball to make it stable. And then I push up into my hand and then I squish the ball. So this would be something that you can gently keep it healthy, but without it having to hold her, because the one that was holding is great for us when we're running, walking, cycling. If you're already fried, with her having to be on that hip to hold, it's too much. It's like, I can't hold and stabilize and do this drill. It's too much. So then you have to go to something that is not holding you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because there's a few people, 2 or 3 women who have shoulder problems who are finding some of the exercises in the program a little bit challenging on their shoulders. And that's something I didn't explain it in that way, but I was saying with my own personal experience, sometimes I just needed to stop all my rehab exercises. I just needed to rest for a while. So for those of you who have shoulder issues, chronic shoulder issues, that's a great tip. So we're going to wrap up here.
I say one sentence to that. Are we okay for one point on the shoulder?
Sure.
So just really quickly, that one tip that I gave with the breastbone up and the shoulders floating up and back, it does give it a lot more space and it takes some pressure off the neck. Just like the knee having an ankle or hip contribution, quite often with shoulders, if the neck is a little bit unstable, people are having shoulder issues because the upper traps are kind of trying to stabilize the shoulder blade and the neck. So it's very often a jaw or cervical thing. So you could have perfect technique and your shoulders are still going to freak out. And it's because there's instability here. So even a very quick drill would be like the shoulder position, but the chin down and the head pressing into your hands where the back is decompressed and you get the neck abs working. A lot of times, something that simple, you can even hold it and move your jaw around a little bit. You'll feel when you move your jaw how different parts of the neck stabilize. So I don't touch a shoulder problem without checking cervical and jaw. It's massive. You can imagine, right? So if that neck's a little unstable, and this is my own past of having to walk like this for, I couldn't run for 3 years and I had to walk like that. So and my shoulders were a disaster. So I do remember my own issues with that. And with my neck is stable, my shoulders literally, like, knock on wood, they're never tight, but I do a lot of neck work.
Yeah, and again, that speaks to it, wherever the problem is, look above the joint and below the joint.
Exactly.
And so I really appreciate that. Denise, I still appreciate your time. I know you have to fly. Everyone's got busy work days. So thank you so much for joining. And I want to share your Fitness Fix TV before we get off, because I think people are thinking, wow, I want more of this. And they will not be able to get in to see you for months and months. So how can they get more information? There, you share amazing videos on Instagram.
Yes. So
at
fitnessfix.ca for Instagram tag. And then even, just to touch on, like, if any of you wanted videos of those exact exercises that we did today, and Karen, even that one I touched on at the end, that would be safer for your hip, just like through Rebecca or whatever, email me, because I can send you the video links to those. So at least you'd have that as well. But yeah, the fitnessfix.ca has all the information on it too, like my website. And
yeah, so the website, the Instagram though, is phenomenal, filled with videos by Denise. And then your Fitness Fix TV, can you just share that quickly with us?
Oh yeah, so then that's basically the way the TV works, and the promotion for you guys is $50 for the year, and you have access to hundreds of videos. There's the corrective exercises and lots of 5-minute workouts, but I coach through everything, like warm-ups for golf and running, like that kind of stuff. And basically it's just set up that you just click on a workout. It could be a 20-minute workout or a 30-minute workout or a 5-minute, and you piece them together. But you basically just pick anything you want, and then you can go from there. But the corrective will have, like, it has the exercises that have, like, say, ankle and footwork, hand work, wrist work. Like, it has all, like, lots of deep things similar to what we did today as well.
Yeah, wonderful. So such a generous offering. I can't believe $50 for a whole year is amazing. So please do check out Denise. Thank you so much. And Denise is also generously offering a prize. So she will speak with you or be in touch with you somehow. I think it's the third place prize. And we'll bring together 6 very individualized, customized exercises for you that she recommends based on what's going on in your body. So that's for the third prize in the competition. So Emily is saying thank you. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Denise. Nick is saying thanks, Denise, with a few hearts. We're going to end here. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your time. Thank you so much, Denise, for joining us once again.
And we are arching the back a little bit on that hip slide. Like, you're just staying neutral as long as that bum doesn't drop. I just saw that question there too. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Sure.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.